All right. It's Thirsty Thursday. Oh my God, can you go any slower? Come on, Tesla. Oh my God. Let's go this way. I'm annoyed already. Right, we're starting off on Michelson. We got a food delivery today. We're delivering dinner to the family. So the only thing we really have at our house to eat right now is junk food, so I had a request to bring food home. We've got back to school night, or not back to school night, I always say that. We've got, it's not back to school, it's whatever you do when you meet with your kids, teachers, and all that good stuff. So I have 3 kids, so actually this one's just for 2 of them. But it's a family event, and so we're all gonna go. So that's gonna be from 6 to 7. I don't know how we're gonna do it so fast. I think it starts officially at 5:30. I think they have like a little talk with the principal, and then and then we get released to go check out the classrooms and see what our kids have been up to. Then after that, we have to come home and move all our furniture out of the living room, because the property manager for the house I live in, they're going to replace the carpet tomorrow. So we had a roof leak at our house. We reported 2 years ago. We actually had one in the garage that's been leaking for probably about 8 years. And we report it all the time, but they just never fixed it. And then same with the roof. The roof leak was leaking in the living room, and it was leaking in the back bathroom. It started out where you could just see it on the wall, and we reported it, and then it just kept getting worse and worse every year, and they would just never come fix it. And then it finally turned into, and we live in a nice area. We don't live in the hood, right? Not right now. We're probably going to move to the hood, but right now we don't. But it's fine. I grew up in the hood, so. But hopefully not. Hopefully we can move into a nice place. But anyway, so they finally fixed the roof last week, and they still have to replace the walls in the living room, and they have to replace the ceiling and probably some parts of the wall in the bathroom. So it started getting moldy. It started getting mold really bad in, I think in June of 24. Maybe it was June of 24. And so they finally came to do the ceiling after all this time. And to top it off, after we reported the leak, like, they tried to increase the rent. So they tried, and we told them, well, we're not going to pay that until you fix everything. It's been interesting. So I'm not too sure how the situation's going to play out. But it turns out, like, during this time, like, probably before we realized it, that we were being exposed to a lot of dangerous stuff. I think that even if that mold is behind the walls and it's been, yeah, I won't go into too many details, but it's been a mess. We've been there for a long time and we love the neighborhood, so it's like we tolerated it, and we just kept getting the runaround. They kept sending people over to quote the roof, and then they just wouldn't fix it. It's been a very stressful situation. I think David Lee Roth is probably a little bit more kind of oh, there's that green Lamborghini. That's cool. Pretty cool. Yeah, that guy lives in these apartments over here. Seen him before. Yeah, David Lee Roth was a little more, I guess, crazy, eccentric. So they were both like, well, I don't know about David Lee Roth, but I know that, I mean, the 80s were just something different anyway. Sammy Hagar was more of, and of course I'm referring to Van Halen, them as lead vocalists of Van Halen. So David Lee Roth was like the karate master, rock climber, just out of control in that way. And Sammy Hagar has a resort or something like that down in Mexico somewhere. His own tequila and stuff like that. I don't know that much about him. This is just stuff that I've heard throughout the years. I'm not like a Van Halen fan by any means. But they have some good music, and of course Eddie Van Halen rips, and yeah. I think those were the cocaine and whiskey. But Eddie Van Halen, I think he wasn't the whiskey one. I think it was his brother. I'm not sure. And then I think Eddie Van Halen was the vodka one. I think he was a vodka guy, maybe. But when I was a kid, I was into, like, really young. I liked metal bands like that. You know, I got into the hair bands and I went to a Christian school, so it was kind of interesting. But what happened is there were these two girls. So I went to a Christian school out in the country, and every once in a while we would get like, you know, kids that may have been having problems at other schools, and then their parents would put them in our school to try to get them to, you know, do better, I guess. And there's these two girls that came to our school. They were older than I was. I was pretty young. They were upper grades, you know. But they would wear like these rock and roll. We didn't have uniforms or anything. They wear like these hairband shirts, you know. They'd have like, you know, any of them you could think of. Not like the hardcore ones, not like, be like Motley Crue and that band Rat, Cinderella, those Van Halen, those types of bands. I mean, Van Halen wasn't really a hair band, but all that, you know, I remember when that song Jump came out, that was like really popular. And anyway, so like these girls had a huge impact on the school, you know. So I started kind of tripping out on some of these bands on MTV. I really started liking that type of music. And then we really thought that at that time Motley Crue had that song Shout at the Devil. So I thought that was just like over the top, like evil. And of course there were Ozzy Osbourne and stuff like that. It got a little bit more hardcore towards the end. And around that same time, you know, rap was pretty big too. So I started getting into rap music, watching Yo MTV Raps. There's just a lot of cool stuff going on in the 80s. Yeah, Headbangers Ball and Yo MTV Raps. Very cool stuff. Then the alternative one came out, 120 Minutes, I think it was called. Well, I always liked music. Music was like my, I don't know, it was just, I was obsessed with music. Like, I didn't play any instruments or anything like that. I mean, we weren't really that type of family where they're gonna like put us in piano or guitar or anything. I just really, and specifically I was very into lyrics. I liked lyrics. So I would write like, so I had gotten a radio probably for Christmas, just like a little tiny radio. It didn't have a cassette player or anything, just had an AM FM radio, and I loved that thing. And I would go in my room, and I had my toys in my room. So I was pretty young. I can remember playing with Hot Wheel cars in my room and listening to the radio. And then I found out, like, we had an old school tape recorder that was You know, those old kind where it's just a recorder, like where you would record yourself talking, like the type they use, like detectives use when they are interviewing somebody, you know, back in the day, one of those. And then we got blank tapes, and then I would put that next to the radio, and then I would started recording my favorite songs. What's going on right here? Yeah, it looks normal. And so yeah. I listen to Casey Kasem's Top 40 on the weekends. And I would write down the lyrics to the songs I liked so that I could sing along with them. Had the vacuum cleaner microphone. My coping mechanism. Yeah, it's weird. I always had an affinity with words. I would down at the end of the hallway, we had like a bookshelf that was built into the wall, and you know, a bunch of books that I don't know who read the books, because I never saw my parents ever reading, but they had some novels, and I suppose my mom probably was a reader at one point. And then we had a million National Geographics, so I'd always look at those. But then we also had these let's go this way. We also had these encyclopedias that had like I remember they had, like, in the very back of them, they had poetry with you know, I can't remember any of the poets. This is like right when I was barely reading, you know. But I like to read the poetry, and I can remember getting annoyed when the poetry I was reading didn't rhyme. They had like these weird illustrations that were in this that were just black ink and red coloring, but the red was like a maroon red. Kind of a trip. Let's go this way. This is too slow. We're gonna go back out to Cypress right now. The street's hard to cross. St. Andrew doesn't have a stop sign, so it's hard to cross sometimes. See if we get lucky. Oh, we're gonna get lucky. So that's the same route I took yesterday, I think. But we gotta get this food home, so I can't be messing around. We have to go block over. over so we can get the stoplight. We need a traffic light so we can cross safely. Let's use this button. Let's hit that button. Can we make it across? We probably can make it across. 21 minutes. Only 4 miles. See what time it is. $4:30. We're barely to Edinger. So what do we have? So what do I have in my bag? Let's do that. Let's talk about that. So what do I have in my bag? It's heavy. So I've got my laptop, of course, as always, my mouse, a set of Allen wrenches or hex head wrenches, a socket for my back tire. Or not for my back tire, for both my tires, an adjustable wrench, set of brakes, an air pump for my tires, 9 chicken strips, a buffalo chicken wrap, a bag of chips, and a massive Italian sub sandwich, a bike charger, my hood, my gloves, and a charger, a phone charger, and then a cup. I have a cup in the cup holder. So I have to transport ranch for the chicken strips. So we have coffee cups in my office with lids on them. So I put the ranch, because the ranch is in those containers that break apart really easy. You know how the lid can pop off real easy. This car, hopefully they see me. So I was like, how can I transport these without the lid popping off? So I put 3 ranches inside the coffee cup and put the lid on, so it's like reinforced. And if they're not gonna break open in there, but if they do break open, then it'll be inside a container, so it won't be that big of a deal. As long as they don't bounce out of the back of my backpack. Someday I'll get a basket or something on the back of my bike to put on the rack, but I just never think, I don't know why, I just never think about it. Until I gotta transport a bunch of stuff. close call. Dang, look at this ice cream truck. That's cool, man, cool. Right, we need to go one more block over. Cut through the alley. Oh, maybe not. Look at these people. They look kind of interesting area. I used to drive a Volkswagen like that, but it was dark brown. Same exact thing. It was my godmother's friend was a Franciscan monk. Her name was Barbara, and she was probably in her 60s, and she had a Volkswagen bus like that, and she had very short hair, so that's just the style of the Franciscan monk, ladies. And she lived with my godmother, and so did I. And she ended up leaving she ended up getting a Volvo like station wagon. So she left that Volkswagen bus there for us to use. And so I would drive that bus around. I loved it. But she had it set up like it was a really dark brown. It was kind of beat up on the outside, but in the inside it was cool. It had a style, She had all these really cool looking curtains and like little little things hanging off the rearview mirror and stuff hanging all over, like not posters, but like pictures, or crosses and like beads and just all this shit all over the inside of the car. So that every time you turned the corner, you felt like you could just hear all these bells, just ding, 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 like wind chimes. And when you drove that Volkswagen, or if you were riding with her when I first met her and would ride around with her, man, you really felt like you were riding with the Lord, man. It was like serious. And then you make that corner and all the chimes start ringing and everything. It's like some of the most spiritual rides I've ever had were just cruising around the country in that Volkswagen. And she was cool, man. She was I used to go help her out on the weekends. We had a homeless because of her being the Franciscan monk, her major, what she would do is she was feeding the homeless. That was like her sole purpose, was to feed homeless people. So we had like I don't know why I can't think of what they're called, but we had this place in Porterville called Helping Hands? I think it was called Helping Hands. And all the homeless people go there and get fed. And so I'd help her sometimes. I would go there and go there in the early morning on the weekends, and people would come in with donations, and we'd prep all the food and feed the homeless. And sometimes we would go get supplies for Helping Hands in the bus. So some grocery stores would donate stuff like big bags of potatoes, or big bags of rice, big bags of beans. So she'd bring me along so I could help load up the bus. She was cool. She was cool, man. I had, between her and my godmother, so my godmother and her were really good friends, but obviously Barbara was Catholic, and my godmother Anne was metaphysical, so she was into. I met her from a transcendental meditation class when I was a street kid running amok as a teenager. I probably met her when I was like 16 or 17. We ended up becoming great friends, and so when Barbara ended up moving, like I said, she ended up moving. She moved to Salinas and was renting a room out there. So I don't know how I got out there. I didn't drive out to Salinas. Maybe I took a Greyhound to Salinas one time, or it must have been, or somebody dropped me off. I can't remember. I don't know why I can't remember. But anyway, I took a trip to Salinas to hang out with Barbara, and we went into Salinas and Monterey, and she showed me all the different places she would hang out to feed the homeless. She had lived in San Francisco and did the same thing. So she was cool. I mean, she lived and operated in the roughest parts of the city. That was her calling. And I remember to get back home from Salinas and Monterey, we rode back in that Volvo station wagon that she bought. It was so funny because she was probably like, I don't know, 5 foot tall, maybe a little taller, but probably like 5 foot. And she wasn't overweight. She was just, kind of like, healthy. She was healthy, and she would walk really slow, and she would talk super slow. She'd be like, well, Chris, today we're gonna go over to Town and Country, and we're gonna go pick up some of them potatoes and take them over to the kitchen. You want to do that with me? And yeah, Barbara, let's go. And sometimes when she's talking to you, or if you're walking with her, she would just stop. She would stop talking, or she would stop walking, and then she would just be very still, like she was waiting or listening for something, and she would like look up in the sky, look around her, kind of just like she heard somebody talking to her, and she was trying to approximate where they were at. It was really, really cool. I believe there are people who are dialed in like that, She was one of them. So was my godmother. If you have any presence about yourself at all, and you see them walk into a room, it's that they do have an aura about them. I mean, it's not an aura that you can see, but it's one you can feel if you have any kind of sense to yourself, Barbara Muck. And Anne was totally opposite of Barbara. So she was into metaphysics. She had led a very, very rough life, and very rough, man. She went through it all. But by the time I met her, she was fine. So I mean, she was always like a good person. She was never like a street person, you know. I mean, she had her days, I think, in her 20s where she worked in bars and drank. She used to drink, but she wasn't like somebody that was like, you know, an alcoholic and then went into NA or nothing like that. It was just like she was always into spirituality, you know. She read all the old school metaphysical teachings, and she had different, you know, she believed in UFOs, and you know, she read Isaac Asimov, and she read Edgar Cayce, and she read A Course in Miracles, and she was always reading. She always had 2 or 3 books going. But she was tall, so Anne was as tall as I. So I'm only 5'9", and 5'8", 5'9", and she was as tall as I was. And she had, you know, big hair, like just big, massive haircut, and would wear really big glasses, and had a very deep, loud voice. And she was not, everybody was her friend, you know. She didn't have any, she was the type like if you're eating in a restaurant and then there's a family there, and her you know, they got their kids, and their kids having a tantrum and crying like at the dinner table. You know, if you had like a little 3-year-old crying about the food or making a fuss, she was the type of woman that would get up. She would get up and she would tell that kid, now you do not treat your parents that way. That's not very nice. And the kid's eyes would get big and get all scared, and then like they'd chill out, you know. And then she would make them laugh, or, you know, she just had that ability. And I never saw, and that happened often, you know, often. And I never saw parents ever get mad at her, you know. Like, as a parent, like if somebody did that to my kid, I would be pretty upset, you know. But I don't know, she was just, I guess the parents would be happy because she was able to gain control over those kids so fast. I mean, but she's the one, so Anne, I always call her my godmother because she pretty much, she influenced like how I would develop, I guess, like spiritually, you could say. And so did Barbara, but I wasn't around Barbara as much. Like, I was friends with Anne up until I moved out here 15 years ago, and then she passed away. She died of lung cancer. She smoked like a train. Smoked big old 120 cigarettes, and she smoked weed. I've never been like a marijuana person, but she smoked like crazy. It's what she liked to do. I would see her in random places in Porterville when I was living there. I'd be driving down the road, I'd be, oh, there's Anne. She'd be pulled over on the side of the road. I'd stop to talk to her. What are you doing, Anne? Oh, honey, just rolling a joint. She'd be there rolling a joint on the side of the road. And that was just her thing, you know. So I guess she was kind of a hippie, you know, in a way. But a real one, you know, not a, you know, she was the real deal. But yeah, she'd gone through a lot. Yeah, I felt like, man, when she passed away, it was devastating, it was devastating for me. But we had such a spiritual connection. Like, I felt like when she died, I felt like I would see her again, or like I felt like she would communicate with me, I'm like, so this, when she died, I was like, this is gonna be my opportunity to really know, like, is there an afterlife? She's gonna figure out a way to communicate with me. And so sometimes when I meditate, I listen and try to see if I hear her, but I haven't heard her yet. But I don't know, man. She was a badass. She's the one I drove to Oklahoma with, and took her to visit a bunch of family members. Her daughter was living in Missouri, and then she had a niece that lived in down by San Antonio, New Braunfels, I think it's called. And then we drove through the zone of silence down in Texas, and went to the Marfa Lights in Texas, and went to Roswell. When we went down there too, we had a bunch of, like I said, I wasn't a smoker, but she was, so we had a bunch of marijuana with us. Like, we had, I don't know how much we had, at least a pound, at least a pound we had. Maybe, I think we might have had 2 pounds on the way, and then we left left a quarter pound with a friend of mine in Oklahoma. And when we were going through Texas, we had it in the trunk, and we were going on this 2-lane highway. This is when we were going through the zone of silence, so we're out in the middle of nowhere. It's like desert. Nothing. You're like passing like 1 car an hour, and we're just cruising, and so she's smoking a joint. She's got her legs up because she had to wear this girdle around her body because she had all these what's it called? She had when you, like, all these pulled muscles, what are they called? Anyway, I can't think of what it's called, but she had this condition where she had like all these pulled muscles, all these things in her body that she had to wear this thing around her body to basically keep everything together in her inside. She had a lot of health conditions, and so she was really tall, but she would have the seat back, and then she would stretch out like the best she could, and she was doing that and smoking a joint. And then in the distance, it's just like you think. It's super sunny, super bright. You can see the waves of heat coming off the road, and I see an object in the street ahead, and then I start to see, we start passing these cones, like traffic cones, big tall traffic cones, and then a sign says like checkpoint. So there was a checkpoint there for I guess seeing if you're transporting people, illegal people in your car. So it was a checkpoint like that out in the middle of nowhere. And it was, I don't remember how many vehicles were there. I think just like 1 or 2 vehicles and a couple of officers and like a dog. So we had plenty of warning. And she sits up, and I was like, Anne, it's a checkpoint. And she's like, oh shit. So she had this Folgers can that she would put her cigarettes out in that had a bunch of like white sand in it. And she was like, I don't know how we got away with this, but she, like, so quick, like in one sweeping motion, she jams that joint down into the sand. On her hands way up, she grabs a freaking perfume bottle and just starts just like freaking spraying. We had the windows open, so, but started spraying the car with perfume. And we pull up and we just tell them what we're doing. We're coming back from Oklahoma. We're heading to New Mexico, to Roswell, and what, just told them our plans. And she kept it cool, and I kept it cool. But I can remember looking at that dog. They had a dog right there, and I was looking at that dog, and the dog's looking at me, and I can see it moving its nose, you know, like it's moving its nose around, like it smells something. But shit, they didn't say anything. They just let us go. We took off. Oh, we laughed. That was so funny. I was like, I would have went to jail for you, Anne. I would have said it was mine. Could you imagine though, getting arrested in Texas with a bunch of weed? Man. Sure hope I get to see her again. Alright, so I'll probably publish this video tomorrow. I know there's a lot of talking and storytelling, but it's just practice. I want to try to find, I won't always tell stories, but if I want to see what you guys think about commentary, and I have a lot of stories, and I feel like as these trips, as this commute gets more and more repetitive, might help to add a little bit of story, a few stories onto these rides. So I don't usually share a lot of personal stuff, but it's not a big deal. These stories are just, I had many adventures. I have yeah, man. I mean, when you're old like me, you've done a lot of things anyway, but everybody has stories. I've got a lot of stories about I've lived in New Mexico a couple of times, up in the Brazos, and then I've lived in Sequoia National Park, like in the redwood forest, where the big trees are. I lived up there by the General Sherman and Morro Rock. So I try to, it's better if they come natural though. It's like to try to dig them up and plan it out and do something like that. It's better if, but maybe I'll try to tell a story about living in Sequoia National Park with the hippies. Alrighty, well, thanks for watching my video, and we'll catch you on the next one.